Happy Tuesday. It is Tuesday, April the 25th, 115th day of the year. There are 250 days left in 2023, and welcome to another edition of Tuesdays with Thom. If you've been holding on to the gift cards from Bed Bath & Beyond, you may want to use them sooner rather than later. Bed Bath & Beyond is now heading for the beyond. The company has warned since January that it may have to file for bankruptcy due to its shockingly poor sales during the 2022 holiday season. Bed Bath & Beyond has announced that it and certain of its subsidiaries filed for voluntary petitions for relief under Chapter 11 of the Bankruptcy Code of the United States. I think the thing that is probably most disturbing, but also you can congratulate them on, is of the 360 Bed Bath & Beyond and 120 Buy Baby stores and websites, they will remain open and continue serving customers as the company begins its efforts to effectuate the closure of its retail stores. At least the stores will remain open, and for now, the employees will keep their jobs, and that's a good thing. So we will continue to see how that works out. They said they'll continue the payment of employee wages and benefits, maintaining customer programs, and honoring obligations to its critical vendors. The United States is setting a record pace for mass killings in 2023. 88 people have been killed in 17 mass killings over 111 days. It's unfortunate. Our G-List guest today is Dr. Christa Platt. Dr. Platt is the director of the Multicultural Center at Illinois State University. We look forward to our conversation with her. This edition of Tuesdays with Thom, of course, is sponsored by our partners, the Best Girl Consulting Firm. Best Girl has been providing customized solutions to executive issues for 34 years. So let's hear from Best Girl.
Best Girl is a consulting firm that provides customized leadership, access and inclusion, public relations, communications, and organizational consulting services. Clients include Fortune 500 companies, utilities, higher education institutions, small businesses, and associations. Best Girl's team of consultants, led by Joyce Gilly-Gossam, Emily Hedrick, and Sean Jones, partners with business and education clients to promote organizational effectiveness, communication, motivation, and leadership, with always an impact on the bottom line. Best Girl's customized consulting services include strategic planning, corporate communication, executive coaching, fundraising, and economic development.
Best Girl creates the solution that fits your needs. So let's go directly to our roundtable regulars and introduce Barbara Wallace-Edwards and Michael Walker. Barbara Wallace-Edwards, how are you this morning?
Good morning, Thom. I'm doing well. Thank you. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Thank you. Good morning, Michael Walker. How are you, buddy?
I am doing well, TG. Good morning to you, and good morning to you, Barbara Wallace.
Good morning, sir. Long time no see.
So
I know.
Let's move forward here. Barbara, you were participating in the Black Alumni Weekend this weekend at Auburn. Your responses and your reactions.
I did, Thom, and it was great to be back on campus and see so many of our alums on campus. We had students there from the 1970s all the way to the 2023 graduates. So it was a great time. I thoroughly enjoyed the panel discussion on Saturday, which you were a participant of, and thank you so much for your contributions to Auburn and our rich history there. I do think that there's a lot that needs to be worked on at Auburn, and I think most of the alums would agree. Our enrollment of African American students has dropped to 3% at Auburn, and that's just unheard of in this day and time. So I think the administration is aware of that, and you brought out a very important point on Saturday. You know, we're talking about a lot of different things, but DEI is under major attack in this country, and I would hope that there will be a huge shift of focus on strategizing to make sure that our minority enrollment does not continue to decline at Auburn. Not just enrollment of students, but also our faculty and staff numbers.
Michael, you went to the OnMed, and you may want to first of all tell people what OnMed is, and talk about that and where that's going.
Yes. Well, first of all, OnMed is a company that manufactures what they call a medical kiosk station. I don't think they like to be referred to as a kiosk, but it is a medical station that involves the technology of telemedicine. Auburn has one that has the Auburn logo on it, and it has been installed in Chambers County, Lafayette, Alabama, a few minutes drive from Auburn. Primarily what these systems are designed to do is to provide access to healthcare for the people that are underserved or underinsured, and in particularly in rural areas where there aren't any main access to hospitals or they're a ways away. And this system in Chambers County, when you go into it, it has a station on the floor that actually measures your weight and tells you how much you weigh. It can take your temperature from the hottest part of your body to let you know what your real temperature is. There's a scope that comes down that they can look in your mouth or your eye or ear to see if you have any infections there. And this system will even dispense medication or prescription meds. So there are quite a few of them. There's one in Tuskegee as well. They have one on campus. And from what I understand, they may be looking to add another one.
Is the one in Tuskegee already operating?
Yes, it's been up and operating since October.
Good deal. Good
What
deal.
has been the usage of it, Michael? Have they kept any metrics so far?
Well, the company OnMed has some metrics on it. I told the president, the CEO, the face of OnMed on Friday that I needed to get some data from him on the usage. I have been told that the one in Tuskegee is generating about $34,000 a month in revenue. Okay. Now, just to get an idea, normally the cost to go to visit a doctor in OnMed is somewhere between $25 and $50, something like that. Something similar to a copay or what have you to go see if you have health insurance.
Right.
The one that is being done in Auburn with the help of Thom, we ended up getting it financed through Blue Cross Blue Shield,
right,
Alpha Insurance, and Chambers County applied for a loan. Well, not a loan, a grant, rather, to help fund the cost of that system. And there was some type of relationship there where Blue Cross Blue Shield in particularly had helped people that are on Medicaid or say on Medicare and have a Medicare Advantage plan, or say they have Medicaid and Medicare, which means they are under the federal poverty level, help them underwrite their costs for going to visit.
Let me pitch in here and say that one of the things we try and do on this show is to give you, our listeners and viewers, information, and information that they can hopefully then use in their everyday lives and so on and so forth. In regards to OnMed, I think Michael and I had a discussion at some point about OnMed, and we thought it would be a great opportunity for Auburn University because of its extension services, and talked to the authorities there, and voila, we have an OnMed situation in Chambers County, and hopefully it will grow. But I know, Michael, you work with the people in outreach who are basically the individuals at the university who is working on this, and I think we're going to have them on the show. Is that correct?
Yes. Dr. Holly Cost has said she will be on May 16th. Holly was there on Friday, I might add. President Roberts, our new president of the university, was there and made some remarks. He's really excited about it because he says, given his background being in engineering, and it brings together healthcare and technology to benefit those who need service. So he's excited about it. And the top official with the outreach program at Auburn University is excited, and they're talking about different locations within the state that they would like to deploy these systems
So
to
there
help
could
the people.
conceivably be more of them then.
It sure could.
And,
yes,
and
absolutely.
primarily, and you correct me if I'm incorrect, if I'm wrong here, but I think these are primarily targeted for areas of who don't have medical care, who may not have a hospital. Like Tuskegee, I don't think they got a hospital in Tuskegee anymore.
No, not any longer. Yeah, they have to come to Auburn, to East Alabama, or go down to Montgomery. So this is great for them, especially people, because it helps in preventative care, because a lot of people that do not have health insurance, they have a tendency not to go to the doctor until it's too late. Then they have to go to the emergency room and they're hospitalized. This is a way to fill that void there where they can at least go to the doctor and maybe if there's an issue, get on top of it before it becomes drastic.
And Michael, these are also going to be located in areas where people may not have a lot of public transportation or transportation available to them. So it's going to be much more accessible to them than trying to get to a doctor or a hospital. So that is definitely a benefit.
Yes. And as you know, Dr. Rick Cook is the vice president of outreach. And, with Auburn being a land grant institution, its mission is to go out and help those in the communities in the surrounding area. So it was appropriate that it came through his department, which is outreach. And Auburn is to be commended on that.
Yes.
As a matter of fact, Thom, your name was brought up by Dr. Cook when he went in to give his remarks. And very few people knew that Thom and myself had a hand in bringing this to Auburn. They all was just about the hoopla and what was going on. And Dr. Holly Koss said that her boss, Rick Cook, had the vision to bring this. But when Rick got up, he said, actually, there were 2 Auburn alums that brought the idea to him, Thom Gossam and yours truly, Michael Walker. So we did get some acknowledgement, Thom.
Very good. Very good. Barbara, you got something else?
I do, Thom. I want to congratulate Antley and Angela. This coming Saturday, there'll be time tonight. So, Antley, if you're on, congratulations, and we look forward to hearing all about the ceremony. I know it's going to be beautiful. And Thom, I know you attended a wedding this past Saturday, but yeah, Antley and Angela are getting married this Saturday.
Very good. Congratulations, Antley. I hope she doesn't dump you soon once she finds out who you are.
And for those that don't know, Antley has been a viewer with us from day one. I think he's a lot of fun.
Antley is a good friend, and he knows I kid with him a lot. He kids with me a lot. So, Michael, I got a couple other things for you. So, the NFL draft comes up this week. What's your take on it?
Well, I think it's going to be pretty interesting. There are a lot of quarterbacks in this NFL draft.
Isn't it? It looks like at least 30 quarterbacks.
In the past, it's been a dearth of not enough quarterbacks, but this time they have a lot. You have Will Levis out of Kentucky. You've got Herndon Hooker out of Tennessee that a lot of people have forgotten about, who was a Heisman frontrunner before he tore his ACL in the Georgia game, I believe.
Right.
And then you've got Bryce Young of Alabama, C.J. Stroud. Then you have the guy that was formerly known as AR-15, Richardson, down in Florida. And because of the issues surrounding the assault rifle, he doesn't want to be known as AR-15 anymore. But there are quite a bit of quarterbacks coming out.
Quarterbacks and what they're now calling edge rushers. It used to be
formerly known as the artists of defensive ends.
Okay. Hey, Michael, I got one more thing for you. Did you read the comments from Phil Jackson, former basketball coach?
I did not. I missed those. Tell me about them.
Phil went off on the fact that he sort of has an issue. With the when they were in the bubble, and the players had titles on their jerseys like Justice and Black Lives Matter and so on and so forth, and he seemed to have had a big issue with that. It's funny how these guys who have worked with young black men all their lives have made their living off young black men. He, Tommy Tuberville, and others. And then now they have big issues with the young men and who they are and I guess their behavior. Yeah, it was in the news. I think it was Sunday afternoon.
Oh,
But
okay.
I think most of them sort of, well, you can imagine what Charles and Shaq would say.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, I'm sure they represent it.
All right, sounds good. Barbara, you got anything else?
No, I don't have anything else, Tom.
Okay, Michael.
I do. I have a couple things I like to mention. One thing that's making the news quite a bit here is our district attorney at Fulton County, Fonnie Willis. As you well know, that she's been on the former president's trail for quite some time. She made an announcement yesterday that she will be bringing forth her decisions as to whether or not to bring charges against former President Donald Trump between the months of July and September 11th this summer. She further indicated that the reason for giving such a long or advance notice is to give the sheriff of Fulton County an opportunity to kind of get prepared for any civil unrest that may be following her announcements. Also, the city of Atlanta, and I would say the troopers as well. So you can read between the lines that if she says she's giving a long leeway for that, what may be coming. So that's pretty interesting that she would resort to that. So we'll see what's happening between July and September as she comes forth with her findings on that. There's something else I like to mention because it deals with one of the states here in the Southeast, is Alabama. You know, there's been a lot of talk about some hospitals shutting down, certain hospitals in say, areas that are not quite as affluent as other areas. And Medical Properties Trust, a Birmingham-based company, they operate a REIT, which is a real estate investment trust company. They have been partners with a company out of Delaware called Prospect Management Company, whereby they got together and they basically sold the property, land, building, and all of that, and went and borrowed money. They borrowed $1.1 billion.
Wow.
And the management company of Prospect Medical paid themselves a $457 million dividend after they got the loan. The CEO himself took home $90 million.
Wow.
And they recently shut down the hospital saying it wasn't profitable.
No,
And
it
so
wasn't
now,
profitable because they took all the money. It's not going to be
Are you kidding me?
when they
I
take
am
all
not
the
kidding
money.
you. It is a
Wow.
story that's under investigation. CBS has been running things on it, a couple stories, and this company out of Birmingham, from what I remember, I think they have somewhere in the neighborhood of 200 and something different properties. This real estate investment trust has nearly 200 hospitals, often in low-income communities. And so what they build themselves as a resource for capital for hospital operators. But what they end up doing is going in, they end up with an equity investors in a hedge fund and all this, buy up the hospital, and then they lease it back to them at higher rates.
Right.
And so now the hospital, especially being in low income areas, they are having difficulty paying the rent. And so then they go out of business. That puts the nurses out, the doctors out, and all of that. But the management people go away with the big money.
Sounds like
Millions
a scheme
and
to me.
millions and millions. Wow.
Yes.
That's sad.
Yes.
Yes.
That
I
is
know
really
they're
sad.
refurbishing the old Caraway Hospital. I don't know what they're going to put there. It's over in the Norwood area.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be a hospital though. I think it's going to be like mixed use for retail um, and apartments and things of that nature. Is the last I heard. Now that has changed over time many times. So I don't know. I haven't read the latest, but I'll look into that.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting, and it kind of dovetailed with when I was in Washington when we were up there visiting the elected officials. One issue we brought up was what we call site neutral pricing. And what that means is, say, for instance, Thom, you have a private physician that has his own building and what have you, his facilities, and you go there to get an MRI, and it maybe cost you $300 or so if you have it done in his office. But a hospital, a larger hospital system, buys up that practice.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So now that doctor doesn't own it, he now works for the hospital, and you go back to your same doctor for another MRI. And instead of costing $300, now it may cost you $2,000 because of all that overhead now, because he now owns that. So I think this is part of the problem of what I just told you about with this other company, because those costs keep going up.
Right.
You see? So, for a long time, everybody was blaming the agents and the commission. And those of us that are in the insurance business as brokers and agents kept saying, hey, guys, we're not the bad guys here. It's the providers and the drug makers that's really costing all the money. Right. Now you see it's starting to come out. I see you smiling, Thom, but that's true.
Because if somebody was paying you $600 million, I guess they forgot to give it to you, huh?
I'm telling you, man. I didn't get any.
And neither did I.
No.
Well, I don't know. It's crazy. It's where we are right now in terms of. And you always make the point. If I just said blanket healthcare, well, that basically leaves there's a lot of room in there when you just say healthcare.
Right.
There's a whole lot of room.
Yeah.
For the different entities that are involved. And
yes.
You and I and all of us know that the nurses and many other doctors or whatever are doing the best that they can, and
right.
Are trying to keep us well.
Yeah. If you will, I'd like to close on one good note here in Georgia. Our governor, Brian Kemp, he just signed a bill yesterday down in Augusta, and it's called House Bill 128. But primarily what it does is it provides for representation of minority business enterprises, women-owned business, and veteran-owned business in the area of procurement of state construction, services, equipment, and goods to provide for the related matters with state contracts. So it is to get rid of all the red tape and allow for a streamlined certification for those particular companies so they can participate in the economic engine of state contracts here in Georgia.
And just to clarify, this is primarily minority-owned, women-owned,
and veteran-owned.
Veteran-owned businesses, so that you cut through some of the red tape so that they have a better shot at getting some of these business opportunities,
exactly.
Being small business.
Exactly. Yes, because there are always barriers to entry. The big boys, they don't have a barrier to entry, and when it comes to small business, they have connections.
Yes.
Okay. So they make a phone call and the barriers disappear. But if you are a minority-owned, a woman-owned business, veteran-owned business, there are a few more hurdles you have to go through. So this bill, and by the way, I will say it was a bipartisan bill supported by both Democrats and Republicans to sign this and to implement these changes and get rid of the red tape. And the governor signed it yesterday in Augusta.
Hopefully we'll see that spread throughout other states, because that's something that's needed.
Well, I know one state it won't. It won't. I know two states.
Two. We could probably count two, maybe three. That never will happen, but
I'll take one guess on those two states.
One starts with an A, one starts with an F.
We might want to We might want to throw an M in there too, because I don't think it's going to happen over there either.
Well, M is always included. Growing up in Alabama, the saying was always "Thank God for Mississippi." We would have been 50th in everything.
Yes.
Negative. Anyway, so anything else for you guys?
One other thing. Emi Udoka is now the head coach of the Houston Rockets. So he'll be.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, you knew he would get another job. Boston just couldn't bring him back.
Right.
This season because of how it would look. But yeah, he's with Houston, and we'll wish him well. Hopefully he washed his hands and got himself clean.
Yeah, hopefully he learned a valuable lesson in that.
Well, they never did go into detail as to who the people were that were involved.
Well, they talked about one person.
Yeah. Anyway. All righty. Well, let's move on. Let's go to Sean. She's got a minute for us. Sean, are you out there?
Good morning to everyone joining in with us. My name is Shantia Jones, and this is Got a Minute. I can't believe April is gone already, but as Virgil Georgix once said, time flies when you're having fun. And speaking of fun, I don't normally share facts about sports, and here we are. Did you know that on this day in 1974, the NFL adopted a new overtime rule for regular season games to prevent tied games? The rule change comes as part of a sweeping effort to improve the action and the tempo of the games. The new overtime rule mandated teams play an extra period if the score was tied at the end of the regulation play. In overtime, the first team to score was declared the winner. If the score was still tied after the overtime, the game resulted in a tie. The NFL has since modified the overtime rule. The season before the overtime rule was adopted, the NFL had 7 ties in the regular season. Unlike some changes in NFL rules, the adoption of overtime was beneficial. From 1920 to 1973, the league had 256 ties. Since the 1974 rule change, ties have decreased significantly. Most fans dislike ties, so do the players. It's not losing, but it damn sure ain't winning, said NFL receiver Stephon Diggs. Not me, he said it. Thank you all for joining in. My name is Shantia Jones, and this has Got a Minute.
All right. I remember the NFL in the days when it was sudden death. And it was, whoever scored first, the game was over.
Yeah.
It was kind of fun that way. I enjoyed it. And they used to say a tie was like kissing your sister.
Yes. Nobody won.
Yeah. Hey, Thom, you remember playing basketball? We used to have it, make it, take it, and do or die. You remember?
Yeah.
Do or die.
Okay, well, look, let's move on. Let's go. Hollywood's got the A list, and here on Tuesdays with Thom, we have the G list. Our G list guest today is Dr. Christa Platt. Dr. Platt is the director of the Multicultural Center at Illinois State University. It was completed in the summer of 2021 and opened on the campus to the campus community in the fall 2021. Dr. Platt desires to see these lives thrive, have deeply influenced her, and this not making sense right here, but that's okay. To be in equity, she is being an equity-minded champion. So, Dr. Platt, how are you this morning?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Oh, we're doing fine. We're glad to have you. Thank you for being with us.
Thanks for bringing me on today to the G list. Glad to be here.
There you go. There you go. And I think your fellow Illinois State alum, Dr. Joyce, is on with us this morning.
Good morning, Dr. Joyce.
She's on here somewhere. So tell me this. So tell us about the Multicultural Center.
Yeah, sure. So, I think it's hard to tell the story about the Multicultural Center without talking about the years of advocacy that our students really put in to make sure that this place is here for them. There have been years of, I would say, protest, new aged video making, to really get the message out about why a center like this matters for students who are often forced to the margins, not just of historically white institutions, but our society. And so the center is 2 years old, but I'd say there's a good 10, 20 years of advocacy for just efforts of equity, efforts of making sure that the campus is a place where students feel like they can belong. But my role in helping to create this center really started around 2018. I came on campus really into this department to support students. It was the Dean of Students department, to support students. This office was called Diversity Advocacy. And in this office, we housed 4 student organizations: the Black Student Union, the Association of Latin American Students, Pride, and our Asian Pacific American Coalition. So these organizations have been around at the institution for 50 years. This is why I say, right, that this center really goes beyond myself, and it goes beyond even the students that I've been able to engage with. But there was some advocacy that was happening when I got to this center, when I got to this office. Students saying, hey, we want the university to know the kinds of experiences that we are having on the campus. Actually, a couple years prior, in 2015, the university did a study. We brought in a researcher named Dr. Sean Harper, to ask some really key questions about what is it that the institution is doing to support efforts of equity, inclusion, and diversity. And there were some questions that were left for us and some recommendations. One of the recommendations that Sean Harper left with us is said to create and invest in affirming spaces for students of color. And that was a direct recommendation, a direct quote, as a result of the conversations that had been had with the students on the campus. That recommendation turned into a task force that put together a plan to say, hey, we're going to ask the campus community, what is it that you want to see in a multicultural center? What do you want to see through focus groups and through surveys? What do you want to see in a center like this? Not only did we ask questions of the campus, we also connected with other institutions. We started doing our own visits at other multicultural centers in the region, one of which we decided to bring on one of the leaders at one of the institutions as a consultant for us, to make sure that we were kind of following the path that made most sense for the students. So that was 2018, 2019 that we're doing this research. And then in 2020, I got the blueprint for the center. The president already announced where the building was going to be, and the work had started to be done. And I got the blueprint for this center saying, it's go time, Dr. Platt. Let's get to work. And I was thrusted into meetings around technology and around a number of things. But something in me said, I think I need to slow down, right? Like, I want to make sure that this blueprint makes most sense to the people that made the advocacy for it. So I took the blueprint back to those 4 organizations that I shared earlier. And I said, this is what we've come up with. We've done a lot of question asking, but are we on the right track? When you have a blueprint, it's usually time to go. It's go time. You usually done having conversations. But the students actually were really excited. This is a 17,000 square foot building, and the front desk of this building is the size of the place where they originally were. So they were extremely excited. Wow. They were like, this is amazing. I can't believe that our advocacy our protests, the things that we've been doing actually have made a difference. They also had a ton of questions though. They started to ask good questions, which were like, tell us why there's so many conference rooms. Or, we care deeply about taking care of ourselves while taking care of plants. Our Latin community said that. And so they asked if there was a green room because social justice work is hard. We didn't have a green room for them. They started to ask questions like, we want a social justice, anti-racist library so that we can continue to learn about our identities and really honor ourselves and our communities. So they wanted books. Listen to this. They wanted books to talk about their identities and the truth about who they are. They started to ask us questions like, we care about podcasting, videography. Is there a podcast room in the center? I'm listing the things that we just didn't have. And so it was my responsibility to take that feedback back to the team, back to the architect and say, hey, you know what? We've got some good stuff here, but the students have a list of questions. Let's see what we can do about it. And we were able to make some extensive changes to this blueprint to create a podcast room that was not there, to turn office into a green room. Our Pride students asked for a gender affirmation station, a trans closet, and for students who need clothes that are in that community or students who just need clothes in general. And so there are a number of things that we made a decision and we said, you know what, if we're going to do this in an anti-racist way, we're going to be accountable to these students who are often forced to the margins. So that was 2020. And then that was January 2020. Then March 2020 came. And we all know March 2020 was tough. It was a tough time. We all went home immediately. I remember spring break. It was spring break. Students were gone and it was very ominous on campus. And it was clear that something was happening. We were going to be making a sudden shift, and we did. And we used that time to regroup because I think at the time we were wondering, will we even need a multicultural center? Right? There's this huge crisis that's happening in the nation. In the world, we've never experienced it before. Will we even need a center like this? And we made some decisions to take care of one another, but then we started to use our group chat to continue to get more feedback from students. So we were still having carpet meetings, and we were still having technology meetings, and we were still having a number of meetings, administrators were. But I decided we were going to use the group chat to put pictures into the group chat and ask the students to vote, right? To tell us, are we on the right track with the patterns on the couches, right? When you get a chance, come into the office with your mask on and try out some of the furniture, and you vote and decide. So literally this building from top to bottom, inside and out, has been vetted and approved by students who we've considered our accountability partners.
So let me ask you, there's a lot of talk and some action surrounding state legislatures and what I call an assault on DEI. How is that going to affect what you guys are doing?
Yeah, you raise a really good question. I think one of the most troubling times for me was at the end of Trump's presidency. There was an executive order around EDI and really what it meant for institutions to either stop, pause, or alter the work of EDI. And it was troubling for me because we were having those conversations about what it might look like for us to offer a different way of doing work. So I do think that we have concerns. Those of us who work in the EDI space, we have concerns about what it might look like for us to be moving in the direction that we're moving, honoring students' identities and their heritages and their cultures and their traditions, to go into a place of making apology for them. So I will say, Thom, I am concerned about what it might look like in the future for us. I know we're monitoring. There's a map that we're monitoring in the nation about what's happening around the nation around DEI statements, admissions, right? There are a number of things that have been put forth across the nation, and we're monitoring that. In Illinois, I think during COVID, it was very clear. I mean, I appreciate the leadership that we have here in Illinois. Governor Pritzker has really been an advocate and a champion for EDI work. We've had a lot of initiatives that have come from the Illinois Board of Higher Education that have been situated in charging us to move forward and move ahead with EDI work. And so I think that brings some comfort. Leadership shifts happen, and certainly that can change everything. So it is a concern. But right now, with the current leadership that we have in the state of Illinois, I feel a little more settled now. I do have colleagues in Florida, and I have colleagues in other places who've shared with me the things that they're up against that are quite concerning. And I'm not sure what the life of EDI and the efforts of EDI might look like in other places if those efforts continue.
Okay. Let's get Barbara, you got a question?
I do. Dr. Platt, thank you for joining us this morning. But I would like to know what's the demographics of Illinois State? What are your breakdown of excuse me, cultures there on campus?
Yeah, sure. So I was actually looking at those numbers. We're a campus of about 20,000 students. 18,000 of our students are undergrad, and about 20,000 are graduate students. 28% of our students are considered underrepresented, and about 10% of those students are considered African American.
Okay, thank you. Interesting. And what percentage of those actually utilize the Multicultural Center? Or is there a large majority of them?
Yeah, so that's a great question. We're actually working through some data analytics right now. I can tell you in the year of 2022, so last year, the full year, we had about 6,000 entry swipes for the building. But just in this fall semester alone, we had over 6,000 entry swipes.
Wow,
and so
that's great.
we're moving.
Yes.
It's certainly a student center, and we have we sponsor 6 student organizations now. Originally, I acknowledged those 4. We've added on a Native American group, and we've also added on a parenting group. So we sponsor 6 organizations, but there are about 40 cultural organizations that are using the center on a regular basis. We have 250 programs a month. I mean, things are happening all the time. We're working. I think our greatest challenge right now is not having students in the building, because students are in the building, particularly in the evening time, but reestablishing what it means to be together in the daytime, right? COVID kind of shifted us a bit, right? So we're working on what it means for students to know, hey, this is your building to be in whenever you want to be in it, and not just when you're invited in the evening when there's a program or an event happening. And so, because when we in the previous location, it was standing room only, and we didn't have all these amenities. We just wanted to be together.
Right.
So we're working towards this new way of being and trying to encourage folks to use the place that students left for them, to just to belong and
Yes.
be in community.
Wow, that's great. Thank you.
Let me get Michael in here, and then
Thank you. I just want to get a little bit of clarification. So
Sure.
the total enrollment is 38,000. Is it? What is it?
It's 20,000. Let me just go back and look at my date. Yep. So it's 20,683 to be exact.
Okay. And you say 28% of those are underrepresented,
Yes.
and 10% of that 28% are what you would refer to as African American.
Yes.
Okay. All right. I was just doing some comparative analysis on it. Did I hear you say something about certain books about the heritage of people that are underrepresented? Isn't it somewhat critical race theory? Are you guys endorsing that?
Well, we absolutely endorse critical race theory.
Right.
Absolutely, wholeheartedly. And I think it's interesting because everything that is related to race is certainly not about critical race theory. I think people have taken that term and just run with it without a whole lot of context, information, or even just care for humanity. I mean, at this point, it's really about the care for people who have in this country gone through so much, right? And
Right.
just this whenever we're having a conversation about Black people, it's not always about critical race theory, but if we want to talk about critical race theory, we can, and we certainly endorse it.
Right.
Okay. I think you picked up on my facetiousness there, but
Sure,
I
sure.
was just a little puzzled there,
Yeah.
Well, it seems as though you have people that are in leadership positions that are supporting what you're doing, from the head of the state, the legislature, and everyone else. Can you tell us from your perspective, why is that so? Because in other parts of the country, you don't seem to get that same cooperation. So what's the difference?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think the way that I frame it, because I think it's a matter of the kind of leader and the kind of leader you decide to be. When I look at the way that COVID was handled, right? So COVID was huge. It was a matter of life and death, and really a lot for people of color, with underlying people with underlying health conditions. But there was a clear distinction in leadership in this nation around care for humanity and care for people, and particularly care for the most marginalized. And I will say, I saw the leadership in the state of Illinois just lean into care for humanity. Just, it was the kind of care that I was like, I never really considered. I'm not huge in government. I certainly watched the news, and certainly was watching pre-Trump, and had to take a step back because it just was too much for me. But I was leaning into government a little bit more during that time to see, how decisions and leadership matter for the people. That leadership always matters. And so I think looking at that from that perspective, and then looking at it from the lens of EDI, it carries over, right? I don't think that there is a distinction. When you care about people, you care about people. When you care about humanity, you care about humanity. And so if we're talking about equity, righting wrongs, and you've cared about the least of these during a COVID pandemic, there's synergy, right? You don't see the dissonance there, but there is dissonance for, you can see some of the leaders in some other places that did not do quite a good job during that COVID season. And you also see the way that they're responding to EDI efforts. Really at the core of it is, how do you care for people and for the least of these? And you can see that. It's very clear.
Wow.
Okay. Yeah, it's interesting. Joyce just put in the chat box here that the Black population in Illinois is 14%. And so with the Black population being 14% and 10% of your students are Black, that is a pretty high mark there.
Yeah.
Versus Alabama, the Black population is about 26% somewhere in that state of Alabama.
Yes.
And our enrollment at Auburn is about 3%.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It's dismal.
But
yeah, wow.
Sad.
She said, "Oh wow."
Yeah.
I mean, that's my
Right. And that's being nice.
Let me. Joyce is on. Joyce has, and you've met Joyce, I'm assuming.
I haven't met
They
Joyce
met.
yet.
Oh, you
I don't
haven't?
think they
Okay.
met.
I'm looking
Well,
forward
Joyce
to
is
meeting
a-
Joyce.
Illinois State grad, and she's a Redbird Rising, as
Yes.
y'all say. And her comment is, if you would talk about, somebody just
Talk about the multicultural.
talk about the multicultural graduation ceremonies that you have launched.
Sure, glad to talk about those. I get joy in talking about the multicultural graduations. One, because we are probably about 10 years in having some of these ceremonies. It started with the Umoja Black graduation ceremony. And truth be told, right, when we decided, as I was a part of a community of Black women and Black professors who are men, and alumni and some students, we came together to make a decision that we wanted to do something that was going to affirm Black students' identities. We've been learning a lot about what it means to be anti-Black, and we made a decision that we were going to do something to honor Black students. But I will say that the campus wasn't quite ready. The campus wasn't quite ready for that. They were thinking that we were going to be segregated, right? We'll have our own ceremony while everybody else has their own. And so there was some teaching and some discussions that had to happen to help people understand that, these students have done some great work, and they've often done things on this campus that require really celebration and honor. And we want to honor their families, their traditions, their heritages. And oftentimes they've had to be apologetic in whether it be in the classroom or residence halls, but we want to secure a place. We want to curate a place that we make no apologies about what it means to be Black and to celebrate our identities. And so the celebration was amazing. And that was the first one. And it happened outside of a department, actually. There was no department, no home for it at the time. There's still actually no home for it because we've decided that they're going to continue to do, this collective work together in community in building this program. But there were, I think, 37 students that participated that first year. This year, we have 175 students who are participating in that ceremony. About a year after that, the university caught on and realized we should be honoring people's heritages. We should honor our marginalized students in a way that allows them to celebrate their identities. And so we started a lavender graduation for our LGBTQ plus community. And then we started Nuestros for our Latin students, our Latin identifying students. And then we started one for our Asian identifying students. And so we actually just had our lavender graduation this past weekend on Saturday. This upcoming Saturday, we're going to be hosting our Nuestros celebration. I think there are over 100 students that are participating in that ceremony. And then we'll celebrate our Asian identifying students the following Saturday. And so these have become a tradition for our campus, and really something that we all rally around to say, we want to do something very intentional to make sure that students feel like they can show up exactly how they want to show up and celebrate the way that they'd like to celebrate this great accomplishment.
That's great.
That's great.
A couple of things. Becky Davis. Becky is in Tampa area. She said that Harry Belafonte just died at the age of 96, and
Oh wow.
of course he was a man, if you were into entertainment, that you admired. And I had the chance to work with one of his daughters in Los Angeles. Anyway, so everybody, at least I will send up a prayer for Mr. Belafonte, who was certainly an inspiration. So, Dr. Platt, we've got about 8 more minutes here. Would you got anything that we haven't asked you that you'd like to talk about?
I think I just want to acknowledge just the work of the students. I think that oftentimes when we do things for people of color, or we do things for folks who are on the margins, we often do them without them. We do them for them and without them. So I think of a photo from, not to pick on Flint, but to think about Flint when they were flipping the switch for the water source. There's a picture of people in suits cheer, like with wine glasses, doing the cheers, smiling, right? This is an economic gain for us, right? And they made that decision for the people without the people. And I just want to acknowledge, the efforts that go well beyond my years of people who have been fighting to do something significant to respond to the needs of students and to prepare and curate a space where, Sean Harper challenged us to create a space where students can be unapologetic, that we make no excuses for who we are in this space. And my desire is that that would carry on for the entire institution, that it not be relegated to a building, but that it be something that happens at our institution. And I really believe, you know, I try to maintain a healthy faith perspective that we can do it. It's a decision about care, right? It's a decision about how we treat those who are who have been forced to the margins. But these are dynamic students. So I just want to give a shout out to them, because I just think that they're brilliant people, and I'm glad we were able to make some decisions not just for them, but with them, and with them as consultants.
Okay.
Dr. Platt, I'd like to ask you, well, first of all, let me say congratulations on receiving the David A. Strand Diversity Achievement Award. Would you tell us a little bit about that award, and talk to us about Dr. David A. Strand?
Oh, man, I met Dr. Strand. Dr. Strand is, first of all, he's the 15th president of Illinois State University, and he created this award in the 90s, a diversity award in around, I think, 94. And his desire was to uplift the work of people who were doing work to support minoritized communities. And so he was ahead of the game. And so he's still in the Bloomington Normal community. And I got a chance to meet him, and we went to lunch when I was named the Diversity Strand Award winner. And one thing about him is that he's a person that really does care. Like, I saw in him and heard in his leadership, you know, the kinds of decisions that he was making while he was the president of Illinois State University that were distinct. And I think that set him above and made him a forerunner for diversity efforts. You know, I joined the ranks of folks who've been receiving this award for years, and we actually just hosted a roundtable, a panel of recipients. And I sat with about eight folks from the 90s up until, 2023, talking about the efforts that they had created at Illinois State to make it the place that it is. Some of those things are actually still standing today. And so I think Dr. Strand, he was certainly a forerunner for diversity efforts, and his idea has kept something going at our campus for decades. And so it's an honor to be named as one of those leaders on campus that are making a change and making a difference.
Very good. Very good. Anything else from anybody?
I was going to read a comment that Joyce has posted. She says that has always been the culture at ISU, even in the 70s. She says she always felt that she was included and that she belonged, and that is so important for students to feel. And so many of them across the country don't feel that way because there's not a huge focus from the administration on emphasizing DEI. So hats off to those in administration at Illinois State.
Thank you.
Okay. Dr. Platt, thank you so much. We appreciate having you. And I haven't been to Illinois State. I'm going to have to come up there with my wife and see what the Redbirds are doing.
Absolutely. Let us know.
Bring some of it back to the South, Thom. Maybe we can take it down to Auburn.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. We enjoyed you. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Okay. My closing commentary for today is we mentioned earlier the NFL draft is this week, April 27th through the 29th. The main selection seemed to be quarterbacks and defensive ends. And I would just like to personally wish all those young men the best and good luck. And to remember that it's a short-lived life, and make the most of it. And so that's how I see it on this April 25th in the year 2023. That's our show for today. I want to thank the audience. We appreciate you. I want to say hello to Antley and congratulations on your wedding. Thank the audience. Thank our G-List guest, Dr. Christa Platt. We enjoyed you. You were wonderful. Thank our sponsor, Best Girl Inc. Thank Barbara, Sean, Joyce, Michael. And that's it for this Tuesday, April 25th in the year 2023. Remember, enjoy yourself. Make every day count. Stay safe. Peace.